Coming up on tonight's UAP News Show.
UAP Hearings Recap, the before, during, and after.
And AARO in the Spotlight, Senate hearings to reveal UFO investigation insights.
Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie. We are back at it again for another episode of UAP Society's weekly UFO news show. I am stoked to get started, so without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Greetings, cosmic enthusiasts. It's Justin here. Let's dive right in.
Up first, UAP Hearings Recap, the before, during, and after. Did November 13th, 2024 mark a turning point in the quest for UFO transparency? The Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Exposing the Truth hearing, led by Chairwoman Nancy Mace and Chairman Glenn Grothman, delivered an exciting and thought-provoking discussion on the record regarding the mysteries of UAPs. With a stellar lineup of expert witnesses from former Navy Rear Admiral Dr. Tim Gallaudet to UFO whistleblower Luis Elizondo, this event pulled back the curtain on secretive government programs, unexplained encounters, and the Department of Defense's elusive UAP files. But did it live up to the hype? Let's break it down for you now.
All right, starting with the before. James Fox tweeted out, "Walking to the UAP hearings now." And we got a quick little video for you guys to watch.
Ready?
Good morning. Hey, James. Hey, guys. I'm just going to meet somebody and see if I can get my butt in that door. Hey, how's it going?
I have you on the podcast, man. We've been talking for too long. Come on, man.
Hey, hello. Hi. Hey, what's up? Hey, guys.
Did you see? I gotta show you something real quick.
Hold on, I gotta keep filming because I'm doing something here.
I got the camera too. I got the camera, so I can get you on the camera.
Okay, I'm following you, brother.
There's Jesse
I'm like
Michaels.
recognizing so many of these people as he's going by.
Dude, I'm filming.
I know the tricks. I know the tricks.
You know what time it is.
Lester Nare.
Oh, there's Matthew Pines. I finally saw him.
Hey, good to see the magician.
Area 52 guy.
Yes Theory.
I enjoyed watching that. That was funny.
Yeah, so
like,
did I.
Getting like an inside view that for people that couldn't be there.
Yeah. I wonder how many people you guys recognize. You know, let us know in the comments down below who it was you saw.
Yeah, I could rattle off a few names of the people I saw in there, but that's cool.
Right.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the during. I've put together a must-see video clip featuring the powerful opening statements and what I believe are the absolute highlights from the UAP hearings. Whether you've already seen the event or missed it and need to catch up, this recap is packed with the moments that you can't afford to miss.
Good morning and welcome to today's historic hearing, which I'm co-chairing with Mr. Grothman, whose subcommittee held an important hearing on this topic last year. I want to thank my colleagues on the Oversight Committee, including Mr. Burchett, Mr. Burleson, Ms. Luna, Mr. Moskowitz, Mr. Garcia, for their relentless drive to get answers on UAPs. They've been steadfast in demanding transparency on the sightings reported by military pilots and armed forces. Their commitment to digging for the truth is exactly what this country needs to cut through the secrecy surrounding this issue. And many high-ranking individuals in the military and intelligence communities believe UAPs demand greater attention, and thus the purpose for this hearing today. Former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster said on Bill Maher's program that, quote, "there are phenomena that have been witnessed by multiple people that are just inexplicable by the science available to us." Army Colonel Carl Nell, a member of the federal government UAP task force, said at a conference this past May that non-human intelligence exists, non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing, and there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that. But UAPs remain a controversial topic. I'm not going to name names, but there are certain individuals who didn't want this hearing to happen because they feared what might be disclosed. But we stood firm. No amount of outside pressure would ever keep me from pursuing a subject to ground, come hell or high water. If government-funded research on UAPs has not yielded any useful knowledge, we also need to know those facts. Taxpayers deserve to know how much has it been invested, how much has been spent. They shouldn't be kept in the dark to spare the Pentagon a little bit of embarrassment. The reality is, despite their enormous taxpayer-funded budgets, the transparency of the Defense Department and the intelligence community have long been abysmal. The Pentagon has failed 6 consecutive audits. In fact, it's never actually passed one. Adding to this is a runaway overclassification of documents and materials, a reluctance to declassify materials when appropriate, and at times an outright refusal to share critical information with Congress. In short, it's not a track record that instills trust. So Congress has tried in recent years to lift the veil and find out if information about UAPs is being withheld, not only from the American public, but also from their elected representatives in Congress. Part of the transparency effort was legislation created in the Pentagon, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, but the new office is struggling to get its footing. A recent statutorily required report from AARO intended to illuminate the government's historic assessment of UAPs was heavily criticized by those seeking UAP transparency. The report has stoked suspicions AARO is unable, or perhaps unwilling, to bring forward the truth about the government's activities concerning UAPs. I'm disturbed that AARO itself lacks transparency. Even its budget is kept from the public. So if there is no there, then why are we spending money on it, and by how much? Why the secrecy if it's really no big deal and there's nothing there? Why hide it from the American people? Because I'm not a mathematician, but I can tell you that doesn't add up. And one thing I wanted to add at the end of my closing statement is there is a document that will be entered into the congressional record today. Mr. Tim Burchett from Tennessee has this document, and we just distributed it to every member up here on the dais of this document. But this is going to be the original document from the Pentagon about Immaculate Constellation that Michael Schellenberger delivered to Congress today. So thank you, Mr. Schellenberger, for this information. We are all reading it in real time now, and Mr. Burchett will enter it into the record. But 12 pages about this unacknowledged special access program that your government says does not exist.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairwoman. And I want to thank the Chairwoman and the Chairman both for their continued support and really treating this discussion and these hearings in a way that's bipartisan. I think one thing that's very important for all of us that are interested in the conversation around UAPs is that this is an area that both Republicans and Democrats, where we may disagree in a lot of other spaces, this is an area where bipartisanship is really important. And in fact, I would add it's critical that we all continue to work together in a way that moves forward with the truth and important disclosure. I also want to start with some facts. We know that there are objects or phenomena observed in our airspace, as our witnesses will testify, and also possibly in our oceans. In many cases, we don't know what they are, and this is, of course, why we're discussing UAPs. Now, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, has reported hundreds of UAPs that remain, quote, uncharacterized and unattributed, and which, quote, appear to have demonstrated unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities and require further analysis. This is our own AARO office. Now, we shouldn't prejudge what they might be. I'm certainly not going to. We need evidence. But what we are detecting things, and we know that we don't understand them, and this is worth investigating.
When the American people and members of Congress ask, are reports of UAPs credible, we're met with stonewalling. We're met with responses of, I can't tell you. And in fact, we're met with people not wanting us to have hearings. We're met with people not wanting us to ask you questions. In fact, many of us were told not to ask some of you certain questions on certain topics. In a time of heightened distrust of our government institutions, I believe more transparency is not only needed but is possible. And obviously we can respect national security limits, but we also have to provide our constituents with the information and oversight that they have tasked us for.
To enter into the congressional record this 12-page document that Michael Schellenberger brought today that describes the Immaculate Constellation government program. So we will do that now. Every member up here has a copy of it. The first section talks about the unacknowledged special access program called Immaculate Constellation, and the second section about USG imagery intelligence. And Representative Luna just told me if I say Immaculate Constellation, I'll be on some list. Maybe a FISA warrant, so come at me, bro, I guess. But without objection, entered in the record. All right, so next we will introduce our witnesses for today's hearing. Thank you so much for being here. Our first witness is retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, who retired from the U.S. Navy and is now the Chief Executive Officer at Ocean STL Consulting. Our second witness is Mr. Lou Elizondo, a former Department of Defense official and author of a recent bestseller book about UAPs. Our third witness is Mr. Michael Schellenberger, founder of the newsletter Public and author of a recent journalistic piece about special access programs, including one widely identified as Immaculate Constellation. I swear the staff wants me on a list. Okay. And our last witness today is Mr. Michael Gold, a former NASA official who is also a member of the NASA UAP Independent Study Team. Welcome, everyone. We are pleased to have you today. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise your right hands. This is where it gets real. Do you solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that the witnesses all answered in the affirmative. We appreciate all of you being here today and look forward to your testimony. Let me remind the witnesses that we have read your written statements and they will appear in full in the hearing record. You guys may be seated.
Thank you for this opportunity to testify today regarding unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP. Confirmation that UAPs are real came to me in January of 2015 when I was serving as the commander of the Navy Meteorology and Oceanography Command. At the time, my personnel were participating in a pre-deployment naval exercise off the U.S. East Coast. It included the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group, and this exercise was overseen by the United States Fleet Forces Command, led by a 4-star admiral who at the time was also my superior officer. During this exercise, I received an email on Navy's secure network from the operations officer of U.S. Fleet Forces Command. The email was addressed to all the subordinate commanders, and the subject line read in all capital letters, "Urgent Safety of Flight Issue." The text of the email was brief but alarming, with words to the effect, "If any of you know what these are, tell me ASAP. We are having multiple near mid-air collisions, and if we do not resolve this soon, we are going to have to shut down the exercise." Attached to the email is what is now known as the Go Fast video, captured on the forward-looking infrared sensor of one of the Navy F-A-18 aircraft participating in the exercise. The now declassified video showed an unidentified object exhibiting flight and structural characteristics unlike anything in our arsenal. The very next day, that email disappeared from my account and those of the other recipients without explanation. Yet it appeared to me that no one at the flag officer level was addressing the safety risk posed by UAPs. Instead, pilots were left to mitigate these threats on their own without guidance or support. I concluded that the UAP information must have been classified within a special access program managed by an intelligence agency. That is a compartmented program that even senior officials, including myself, were not read into. Having never signed a non-disclosure agreement regarding UAPs, and now as a private citizen, I've become an advocate for greater UAP transparency from the government. Now that we know UAP are interacting with humanity, and these include unidentified submerged objects in the ocean, we should not turn a blind eye, but instead boldly face this new reality and learn from it.
Let me be clear. UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies. For many years, I was entrusted with protecting some of our nation's most sensitive programs. In my last position, I managed a special access program on behalf of the White House and the National Security Council. As such, I appreciate the need to protect certain sensitive intelligence and military information. I consider my oath to protect secrets as sacred, and I will always put the safety of the American people first. Third, Congress should create a protected environment so whistleblowers desperate to do the right thing can come forward without fear. As it currently stands, these whistleblowers suffer because of stigma, a code of silence, and concerns about retaliation. These whistleblowers should be encouraged to come forward in ways that protect them against any forms of retaliation. Policies and procedures should ensure that protection, and for those who refuse to cooperate, it is up to the members of this committee and the other lawmakers to wield their subpoena power against hostile witnesses and prevent additional government funding to those UAP efforts that remain hidden from congressional oversight. In closing, we as Americans have never been afraid of a challenge. In fact, we thrive on them, whether it's eradicating polio or going to the moon. We don't run from a challenge, we take it head on. To the incoming administration and Congress, I say to you, we need immediate public transparency, and this hearing is an important step on that journey. If we approach the UAP topic in the same way as we, as Americans, have met other challenges, we can restore our faith in our government institutions. Together, we can usher in a new era of accountable government and scientific discovery. I believe that we as Americans can handle the truth, and I also believe the world deserves the truth.
Whatever UAPs are, Congress must be informed, as must the people of the United States. We have a right to know what UAPs are, no matter what they are. However, we now have existing and former U.S. government officials who have told Congress that AARO and the Pentagon have broken the law by not revealing a significant body of information about UAPs, including military intelligence databases that have evidence of their existence as physical craft. One of those individuals is a current or former U.S. government official acting as a UAP whistleblower. This person has written a report. This is the report that says the executive branch has been managing UAP NHI issues without congressional knowledge, oversight, or authorization for some time, quite possibly decades. Furthermore, these individuals have revealed the name of an active and highly secretive DoD unacknowledged special access program, or USAP. The source of that document told me, that the USAP is a strategic intelligence program that is part of the U.S. military family of long-standing, highly sensitive programs dealing with various aspects of the UAP problem. The new UAP whistleblower claims that the U.S. military and IC database includes videos and images taken using infrared, forward-looking infrared, full-motion video, and still photography. The report that was just shared with Congress says Immaculate Constellation serves as a central or parent USAP that consolidates observations of UAPs by both tasked and untasked collection platforms. Immaculate Constellation includes high-quality imagery intelligence and measurement and signature intelligence of UAPs, the whistleblower's report adds. The sources of this intelligence are a blend of directed and incidental collection capabilities, positioned in low Earth orbit, the upper atmosphere, as well as military and civilian aviation altitudes and maritime environments. The report to Congress details in detail various UAPs, including spheres, orbs, disks, saucers, ovals, triangles, boomerang, arrowhead, and irregular organic. The report describes various incidents found in the human intelligence databases. One involved orbs surrounding and forcing an F-22 out of its patrol area. In another incident, the crew of a Navy aircraft carrier watched a small orange-red sphere rapidly descend from a high altitude of 100 to 200 yards directly above the flight deck of the CVN, or aircraft carrier. And since my reporting on this Immaculate Constellation last month, another source came forward who told me that they saw a roughly 13-minute-long, high-definition, full-color video of a white orb UAP coming out of the ocean approximately 20 miles off the coast of Kuwait. It was filmed from a helicopter. Then halfway through the video, the person said the orb is joined by another orb that briefly comes into the frame from the left before rapidly moving again out of the frame. The person discovered the video on SIPR, the Secure Internet Protocol Router Network, which the DoD uses to transmit classified information. I'll show you this example here. This is a presentation from the UATP task force. This is completely absurd. It's nuts, this level of censorship, of redaction on a document. It shows the redaction of how many reports they've collected, for how many years. 2 of the 3 potential explanations are blacked out. The Pentagon, the intelligence community is treating us like children. It's time for us to know the truth about this. I think that we can handle it. Thank you very much.
Per my introduction, I am currently the Chief Growth Officer at Redwire Space and have had several leadership positions at NASA. That being said, I want to be clear that I am speaking exclusively on my own behalf and not for Redwire, NASA, or any other organization. However, I am here today to speak out for science. Science requires data, which should be collected without bias or prejudice. Yet, whenever the topic of UAP arises, those who wish to explore the phenomena are often confronted with resistance and ridicule. For example, members of the NASA UAP Independent Study Team, particularly those in academia, were mocked and even threatened for simply having the temerity to engage in the study of UAP. Our best tool for unlocking the mystery of UAP is science, but we cannot conduct a proper inquiry if the stigma is so overwhelming that just daring to be part of a NASA research team elicits such a vitriolic response. Therefore, one of the most important actions that can be taken relative to exposing the truth of UAP is to combat the stigma. And this is where I believe that NASA can be eminently helpful.
What's the key takeaway, just a few seconds, about the Immaculate Constellation document you provided us today?
I think that what the American people need to know is that the U.S. military and intelligence community are sitting on a huge amount of visual and other information, still photos, video photos, other sensor information, and they have for a very long time. And it's not those fuzzy photos and videos that we've been given. There's very clear
high-res,
high-resolution.
How many visuals, graphics, videos, photos?
I mean, I've been told hundreds, maybe thousands. I mean, I also wanted to say, because there was some conversation around concern around the revealing of these materials, revealing the source collections, but some of these are shot from helicopters using normal videos of oceans. I just think that's absurd that somehow you're going to be revealing some secret U.S. technology by revealing that you've photographed orbs off the coast of Kuwait.
Okay.
Mr. Gold, you gave a whole diatribe for a couple of minutes about UAPs, science, data collection, stigma. A lot of non-believers in all of this would just ask a very simple question. Why? Why is it so hard? Right? Like, why are people, anytime they ask, why are they always thwarted? Why are they always judged? Why is they always have misinformation spread? Why is there always retribution? Why is it always met with an ear? What's the why? If it doesn't exist, why is it such a problem?
I think if you go through the history of science, Representative, it is always difficult for breakthroughs and new information, regardless of whether it's UAP or any other kind of discovery. And in science, we're supposed to be open, but when you break with the orthodoxy of what's believed, whether it's Galileo saying that the Earth doesn't rotate, or the Earth rotates around the sun, or the sun doesn't rotate around the Earth, it's always challenging for new beliefs. And the more extraordinary those discoveries, the more extraordinary those new beliefs, it's very difficult. So I think this is natural. There's natural conservatism that when it comes to science, but this issue in particular has been very difficult where, again, even to attempt to study it becomes problematic. But every hearing like this, every news report, every video, documentaries, I was privileged to be a part of something Dan Fair is putting together. I think many of us have interviewed for it, documentary over 30 different government officials. Every brick in the wall will help get us closer to getting to the truth.
I appreciate that. I'm a recovering lawyer, so I'm going to put my hat on for a second. You said you signed a document. Love that. Who gave that to you?
The U.S. government, sir.
Okay, you have a copy of it?
It is stored in a SCIF right now. I do not have possession of it. The U.S. government does.
What department of the U.S. government gave you this document?
I will say the Department of Defense. Unfortunately, I can't say in this forum much more than that.
You specifically said the document said you can't talk about crash retrieval. Well, you can't talk about Fight Club if there's no Fight Club.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just making an observation.
Yes, sir.
So that document that you signed, that you said exists, specifically said you can't talk about crash retrieval.
Correct, sir. It was a limitation on because already I'd been speaking publicly about the topic, and so the document said you can continue saying X, Y, Z, but you cannot discuss the topic of crash retrieval.
Okay, my question to you then is, if we were in a secure setting, if we were in a SCIF, would you be able to provide or get access to something, whether it's a visuals or material that we could put our hands on, or biologics that would convince me, that would show me that we have non-human origins?
Sir, that decision would not be mine. That would be to the gatekeeper still in the U.S. government.
And who would we, so if you were in our shoes, where would you go from here? How would you get that information? How would, where, you know, a lot of times we just don't know who to ask because we don't know where to go next. So if you were in our shoes, where would you go?
Well, I prefer to answer that question in a closed session. However, we established AARO for that very purpose, and unfortunately, under its previous leadership, it failed. So one would hope that they would have the authorities necessary to do that. Let's hope that this new iteration of leadership will be successful.
Are these private companies you're implying, or is this non-human intelligence?
It may be both.
Okay.
When it comes to Blue Force Technologies, I would not be able to discuss.
Okay. Are you read into secret UAP crash retrieval programs?
We would have to have a conversation in a closed session, ma'am. I signed documentation 3 years ago that restricts my ability to discuss specifically crash retrievals. I submitted for my book through the DOPSR process, which took a year for it to be reviewed. And what is in the book is what I was told I'm allowed to talk about.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. In your book, you mentioned government employees who've been injured by UAPs placed on leave and receiving government compensation for their injuries. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How can the government deny we have recovered craft if they're paying people because they've been injured by recovered craft?
Ma'am, that's a great question. That's why I think we're here again, because I've seen the documentation by the U.S. government for several of these individuals who have sustained injuries as a result of a UAP incident.
It's a crazy idea, right? The hypocrisy and the logic. Okay, Mr. Schellenberger, I'm going to say it again to be very clear. Immaculate Constellation. What's its mission and how are they funded?
Its mission is to, as I stated, its mission is to, it's an unacknowledged special access program. Its mission is to document UAPs.
Okay, and do you, for your story and your report, do you have more than one credible source?
I do.
Sourcing, okay.
I do.
And then why do you believe your sources to be credible? How do you judge the veracity of the documentation you've been provided about this program?
I checked the sources, and they are who they say they are. They are current or former government officials. Mm-hmm. I wanted to also add that I did not specify that they were Defense Department employees. I didn't specify the agency nor the gender.
Would they have included non-government employees, people that aren't employed by the government?
These are, I'm comfortable saying that these are government or previously government employees.
Last question. Doctor, real quick, can you tell us about the Omaha incident in greater detail? Can you tell us more about that incident? You've written a lot about that.
I wrote a lot about incidents like it, Congressman, but that specific incident involved the USS Omaha, the littoral combat ship of the U.S. Navy operating off Southern California. I don't remember the exact date. It was within the last decade. And what the watchstanders on the bridge observed was a UAP, again, something that was aloft but had no observable exhaust or control surfaces. So it was something that couldn't be explained. And then they saw it enter the water from the atmosphere and going through the air-sea interface, and so thus exhibiting transmedium travel.
Are you familiar with my friend David Grush?
Absolutely, sir. I had the privilege and honor of working with him myself several years ago at U.S. Space Force.
Last year, as you know, he testified that the U.S. has run a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Are there UAP programs operating without proper congressional oversight?
100%.
What are they?
Unfortunately, sir, I would have to have that conversation in a closed session.
I know you said that, and a lot of people are frustrated with those kind of answers, but we're asking those kind of questions so you all know what the heck we're up against. You also mentioned in your opening statement that the Pentagon's Public Affairs Office employs a psychological operations officer as a singular point of contact for UAP-related inquiries. Why the heck would they do that?
Sir, that's a great question. I would ask the Pentagon. There's a long history here of that individual providing misleading and false information to the public through various news outlets and media outlets in order to discredit this topic. I've personally been victim to it. We have the documentation to substantiate where this information has been absolutely inaccurate, that has been provided time and time again, and it turns out that that individual was also working with former leadership of AARO at the time as well.
And we punish them by giving them multi-million dollars more than they ask for every year.
Mr. Gold, if the government doesn't have the data it needs on UAP because, say, someone who saw something is concerned about stigma, public backlash, et cetera, or maybe there's just not good systems in place, how are we supposed to ultimately figure out what's going on?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And let me compliment Administrator Nelson that there wouldn't have been a UAP independent study team if it wasn't for his leadership and courage. We're talking about data and where we can get data from. As I described, NASA has whole archives of data, much of which I believe will likely have information that will help inform UAP. We need only look. And again, in an era with AI and ML, we can relatively quickly and easily go through it. So I think it's something that we should encourage NASA to do. However, per Chairman Grothman's comment about UAP focusing on national security sites, I believe there's something, sir, that you may have heard of called sensor bias. That because we've got more cameras, more monitoring of national security, we don't know how extensive UAP activity may be over civilian areas. And this is to the second part of your question where we're not collecting the data. We're not collecting sufficient data from pilots. We're not collecting sufficient data from civilian and commercial activities. And this is, again, where ASRS, I think, could substantially change that, get the data out there, and allow us to do good science.
Yeah. Thank you.
This next question is for Mr. Gallaudet. To your knowledge, have any USOs ever outpaced our submarines?
Yes, ma'am.
At what magnitude?
I don't have the exact speed, but again, a witness came to me, a credible former submarine officer who observed it on sonar data. And this was in the 80s in the North Atlantic during a storm, and it outpaced his submarine by orders of magnitude.
Do you believe, just for the record, that the federal government, any part of the federal government, is knowingly concealing evidence about UAPs from the public?
Yes, sir.
100%.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. I also want to just go down the line. I know many of you have already said this, but I just, for the record again, just briefly, what do you believe UAPs could be or are?
Strong evidence that they are non-human, higher intelligence.
I echo my colleague's comment, sir.
Genuinely do not know.
Don't know, but we must find out.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate those answers, gentlemen.
But Mr. Schellenberger, I wanted to ask you, I think I understand from this hearing that you would agree that classifying information like this is not in the best interest of the people. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, with the caveat that, of course, I would support classification necessary to protect secrets essential to national security, but I think it's pretty obvious that there's overclassification.
Overclassification, yes. And so in most instances, if they can't tell us what, do you think at some point they'll at least tell us why?
President-elect Trump has repeatedly committed to greater transparency, both on the UAP issue, on JFK files, on COVID origins, and many other things. So I think that we need to make sure that the next administration is held accountable for that.
Agreed. And this is for all four of you. Yes or no, please. I have many questions I want to get to. Are there any known instances of recovered materials or technologies that are not of human origin and maybe connected to any advanced bioscience defense programs within the USG?
I don't know.
I wouldn't be able to answer that, ma'am.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. Are there any technological capabilities observed in these oceanic UAPs that seem to defy our current understanding of physics or our engineering capabilities?
It seems like they all do.
Yes, I would agree with that.
How would you define, each of you, my last question, how would you define non-human biologics, non-human intelligence? What are we actually talking about? Admiral, and we'll go down the line.
I don't think it's a stretch when you look at the diversity of life on this planet and the size of this universe to think that there will be more diverse, higher order, non-human intelligences throughout the universe, and that's probably what's visiting us.
I would take the scientific approach. The definition would be the ability to react to a stimulus in a manner that requires an intellectual thought process.
I just don't know.
I think we must be modest in our assumptions that we're looking for intelligence. That could be biological, it might not.
Non-biological, but what non-biological intelligence, what does that mean though?
Artificial intelligence, ML, machines. We assume that all intelligence would be like us, and every time we look out in the universe, we are humbled relative to what we don't know in terms of the forms of intelligence and what it may take. I can assure you I probably can't ask you your question, but I think the ultimate answer is going to surprise us all.
I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Mr. Garcia and folks on both sides of the aisle for being here today and being patient. We have a lot more questions, and I hope that this will open the door to more hearings in the future. I obviously would like to know how much taxpayers are spending on this. You have the right to know. But also, if we're spending money on something that doesn't exist, why are we spending the money? And if it doesn't, if it does exist, why are we hiding it from the public? And of course, our national security is a huge issue, because if there's technology that could harm us or our allies that are in the hands of our adversaries, we obviously want to stay ahead of that to the best of our ability to ensure that that technology is not in the hands of someone who could use it against us or our allies anywhere in the world. So, Mr. Ogles, you're just in time, babe. I will recognize you for 5 minutes of questioning before we head on out today.
My concern, whether this technology emanates from us or otherworldly, that we know that we possess it. And where's the accountability? Where are the stopgaps? What are the guarantees that if this were to fall in enemy hands, that it isn't immediately weaponized against us? And I'll say this, it is clear from my experience and what I've seen that there is something out there. The question is it ours? Is it someone else's? Or is it otherworldly? And Madam Chairman, I would posit that as the legislative body, as the regulatory body, we must know. And anyone who prevents us from gaining access to that information, I would consider that criminality. Because we have U.S. personnel who may very well be in harm's way. We have technology that ultimately may threaten our very existence. With that, Madam Chairman, I thank you for your indulgence, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Ogles. And with that and without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and to submit additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witnesses for their response. If there's no further business without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.
All right, so there was a lot of things that were spoken about in that opening clip and in those questions and answer things that we just showed you guys. So I just want to kind of like cover like my little bullet points of what they spoke about, just so that we know what the important parts are. So we had Michael Schellenberger talking about Immaculate Constellation. We had Michael Gold talking about the UFO stigma and why is it so difficult for people to accept an NHI reality. We had Lou Elizondo talking about his NDA and how it restricts him from talking about crash retrieval programs, which came up quite a few times throughout the whole hearing. Yeah. He also spoke about the gatekeepers that are keeping this a secret and AARO and their role. And then also they touched on Havana Syndrome, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah. Then we also had Tim Gallaudet talking about USOs and specifically the Omaha incident and transmedium craft that have been seen descending from space into the oceans and all of the things that go along with that.
Yeah, and that was new this year. In last year's hearing, I don't believe they brought up USOs.
Not, if they did, it was like barely a mention, but this hearing really focused on that. Yeah,
you know, this hearing, it didn't really... There wasn't any groundbreaking new information, you know, that was revealed. Yeah. However, I think this hearing was tailored more for people that don't study this topic regularly.
I was basically just going to say that. I was going to say it depends on your perspective, because it's like if you come from the perspective of people like you and I and like most of the people in our audience who are in the know already, there wasn't anything like, oh my God, did you hear him say that? Oh, wow. There wasn't any like any of those moments. But like if you play the clips that we just played for the audience, like let's say for my parents, they'll probably be like, oh, wait a minute, go back. Why did he say that? What does that mean? Da, da, da. Like, so it depends on your perspective. Right. But for us in the UFO community that are in the know,
I don't know.
We got things on record.
We do. Uh-huh.
We got things on record. I mean, they also talked about and mentioned a lot of other super important things like UFOs and nukes, and how, UFOs seem to be super attracted to military equipment and bases and subs and whatever. They also talked about how the U.S. government won't disclose because it'll basically expose the weaknesses in terms of like their military capabilities and stuff like that, So like the U.S. government doesn't want to talk about this because then they'll basically have to admit that they don't have like ultimate control over all of our airspace and everything, and they don't want to do that. They don't want to look. They don't want to make themselves look bad. You know what I'm saying? No. In terms of like to us, the American people, but also they also think in terms of like our adversaries. They also spoke about the importance of the UAPDA and why people need to get that through, and the importance of those things that are in there. They also talked about a human-alien hybrid program that was definitely not mentioned last hearing. That was something new that was brought to the table this time. So yeah.
So just a reminder, they said they gave that testimony under oath.
Yep.
Under threat of perjury.
For not telling the truth, right?
Yeah, exactly. I would have been a lot happier if the whistleblower that wrote that report, the Immaculate Constellation report, if that person would have came and testified. As the first-hand witness. Yeah. But I feel like Michael Schellenberger testifying was the next best thing. I guess that person doesn't really want to be in the public eye yet.
I mean, can you blame him?
No. I did hear. It was a live Q&A session that Ross Coulthart did.
Okay, with who?
It was on YouTube.
Okay.
He said that he thinks he probably knows who the whistleblower is. And it was somebody that was in the State Department. So
State Department. Okay. Yep. See, I feel like Ross is sitting on quite a few secrets. He's sitting on quite a few secrets. I'm thinking about that UFO that's so big that they had to build something around it to hide it. I'm thinking about this whistleblower. Ross has definitely got some aces up his sleeve.
Speaking of that, Chris Lato is actually with Ross Coulthart right now in Egypt.
Yep.
And Chris is reporting that Ross definitely has some good information that's going to be coming out pretty soon. So that's something to look forward to.
Absolutely. Now, getting back to the hearing specifically, there was something super funny that I noticed.
Yeah.
That I don't know if other people noticed, but I wanted to point it out. I'd rather just show that. Well, I guess I should introduce it.
Okay.
Basically, okay, so I think I noticed this stuff because like I'm a teacher, right? So like I'm always on the lookout for like my students doing some silly shenanigans that they shouldn't be doing, right? And a lot of the kids that I have worked with in the past have let's just say gang affiliations, and with gang affiliations comes the flashing of hand signals that we had to be on the lookout for because certain signals meant certain things were about to go down, so we had to be ready for that. So anyways, long story short, watching the hearing, I noticed that there were 3 separate people that took the opportunity to flash some hand signs during the hearing. It wasn't anything bad, it wasn't anything gang related, I'm not saying that, but I'll just show you guys and
okay, it was kind of funny.
See if you notice it yourselves. Okay.
Is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing.
Representative Moskowitz,
and then
distinguished members of both subcommittees.
Behind him.
I'm grateful to all of you.
You see, she's doing it too. Okay. Now watch the next guy.
Whenever the topic of UAP arises,
and he does this 3 different
those who wish
times.
to explore the phenomena are often confronted with resistance and ridicule. For example, members of the NASA UAP Independent Study Team
So yeah, I just Anyway, I wanted to give you guys something to laugh at in case anybody hadn't noticed that. I haven't heard anybody really talking about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just figured I'd bring it up.
And I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know if he did it on purpose or not.
He did it on
do
purpose
this
because he
and not even notice that I'm doing it.
Whatever, dude. Whatever. He put his right hand up and slowly he let the V creep out. And as the V creeped out, his smile got bigger. That man knew what he was doing. Don't even try me like that. Anyways, all right. So
well,
let's
somebody's
move on.
a Star Trek fan, so.
I just thought it was funny that the lady behind him also did it. It was like everybody
Right.
knew when their hands were like zoomed in and they were like, oh,
Yeah.
this is my moment.
Yeah, right.
Oh, Lord. Anyways, okay, cool. So now that you've seen the before and heard the during, let's move on to the after party, shall we? All right, up first, we've got a clip from an event streamed after the House hearing by New Paradigm Institute and MUFON.
Okay.
The key takeaways is you heard Lou Elizondo state that he, as the longtime director of the top secret program inside the Pentagon to investigate the UFO issue, had come to the conclusion that it was clear that the evidence showed that we are not alone in the cosmos. And you heard him talking about the biologics, the biological evidence. You heard the inquiries coming to him. What does that mean? Does that mean bodies? What does that mean? And you heard half a dozen of the members of Congress asking kind of more probing questions. If you were allowed to get into a skiff with me, could you tell me more about the bodies? And he said, I'm not authorized to tell you that. What he's suggesting is that even in a skiff, he's not authorized to tell them this, because the clearances that they have as members of Congress are not the kind of clearances that they need to have in order to be told about this program. There were at least 8 or 10 times, if you were counting like I was counting, there were 8 or 10 times when it was said, I can't talk about this in public, okay? But when you saw them pressed with the question is, if we got you into a skiff, could you tell me the following? At which point the language changed into, I'm not authorized to tell you that, or that would not be up to me to tell you that information. So it means that there's a source of authority still above the members of Congress and their clearances, which is still being deemed to be operational on the part of the witnesses that were actually under these security oaths.
And who are those people?
You could tell that Lou was, the Admiral was. They were still, the question as to who those people are above them is one of the questions that Congress has to find out about. And you saw Burleson, Congressman Burleson kept asking him, kept saying, well, who is that? Who is that is authorized to tell us that? And Lou said, I'm not authorized to tell you that, okay? And it isn't that if I got into a skiff, I could tell you, which was a whole other category of information, but there's a whole other category of information that even if you get them into a skiff, they're not going to tell Congress, okay? So that's the status where we are right now. It's farther ahead than we were a year ago. So we're making progress step by step, but you'll see that this wall is still up here. But very importantly, there are a major growing number of members of Congress, not only on the House side that you saw today, but over on the Senate side that are saying, at least we need to know. And you saw, even with Congressman Ogle, that came at the very end, who was the super hawk. I think you can notice that he's here to protect the national security of the United States. He said, whatever our positions are, Congress needs to know. Okay, you got to remember now, that's the purpose of the UFO Controlled Disclosure Act, is to get Congress informed. And then it's going to have to be Congress and others who decide how much the public is going to be told. So it's important for the population to know that what we're driving at right now is getting Congress informed. So there are nuggets like that you pick up if you listen closely to what really happened here today. And you heard Congresswoman May say over and over again, this is clear that we need to have more hearings. We need to have more hearings to get more information, right? And the key to understand is that when President-elect Trump is inaugurated on January 20th and becomes president, he has publicly stated repeatedly that he will immediately release all of the information about UFOs that the government has, okay? Now, I wouldn't bet on that, but the bottom line is he is saying that, and so all he has to do very importantly, all he has to do is order all of the people who are under UFO non-disclosure security agreements to release them from that security agreement. So then they can come before Congress and tell Congress what the information is that they've got. That's the next step that has to be focused on. And the American people should be involved. You heard Lou Elizondo lay out the 3 levels of things that had to happen. The third one was that the citizenry has to get informed. Has to get mobilized, okay? That's why the New Paradigm Institute and the Mutual UFO Network are joining together now. The hearing is going to take place on the 19th over on the Senate side, where Senator Gillibrand is going to bring in the new head of AARO. You actually heard the Admiral suggest maybe we can have more optimism about the AARO office under the new administration. You heard repeated statements that the AARO office had failed in its mission under its previous administration. But the fact is that 75% of the people in the country don't know that information. The other thing the New Paradigm Institute and the MUFON people are going to be doing is getting the information out to the people so that everybody in the country is as well informed as probably most of you are. To get to that stage so that they can mobilize and put the pressure on their congresspeople and hold more hearings. And we need to move to have more hearings as soon as possible, right after the January 20th inauguration of Trump. Hold him to his word of making this information available, get the Congress involved to reconvene hearings, get Trump, put the pressure on Trump to release all of the UFO whistleblowers from their national security clearance restrictions. But be certain of the fact that the congressional representatives are not going to do this unless the pressure is kept on by the citizens. And that is what Tim Burchett said when he came out of the skiff a couple months ago. He said, the only reason we're here is because the people are demanding it. Okay? So don't stop. Don't stop. That's what we're doing. The New Paradigm Institute and MUFON are joining together now in an alliance to get that to happen. So everybody stay tuned, stay in touch with us at the New Paradigm Institute and at MUFON so that you can be kept up to date, okay? Come to newparadigminstitute.org, okay, and you can get all of the information. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Go Danny Sheehan. Yay.
Yay.
He has a lot of really good talking points. I feel like that man could probably talk forever if you let him. He looked like a minister holding the book on the side.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that
yeah, right.
Everything.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny, but
I like Danny Sheehan.
I do too. He brings up a lot of good points, and just because I decided to be petty AF and throw together a little clip that
God.
I call the Cants,
okay.
I want to share that with you guys too.
All right.
I can't share with you the details, ma'am, but I can do it in a closed setting, and I can also tell you the agency that wrote a report on it.
Okay, so who has the imagery?
I can tell you that in a closed setting.
Unfortunately, sir, I would have to have that conversation in a closed session. Sir, I wouldn't be able to have that conversation in an open hearing. We'd probably have to have that.
Okay.
Well, I prefer to answer that question in a closed session.
Okay.
When it comes to Blue Force Technologies, I would not be able to discuss
Okay. Are you read into secret UAP crash retrieval programs?
We would have to have a conversation in a closed session, ma'am. I would prefer to address that in a closed session, ma'am. Ma'am, unfortunately, I would not be able to have that conversation in public.
All right, 9 times.
I don't think I missed any either, because we literally sat through and watched the entire hearing today to make sure we got all the perfect highlighted parts, clipped all the right things, got all the right screenshots. It was a whole task, but anyways. So yeah, 9 times.
Yeah.
And and there was one time where oh shit, I feel like I should know what question was asked, but anyways, there was a question that was asked where everybody but Lou Elizondo said I don't know, and Lou Elizondo's answer was I can't say.
Right.
I'm sure it had something to do with crash retrieval programs, but anyways, the point is that like the whole thing with him and his NDA and crash retrievals, if there wasn't a crash retrieval program that he's not allowed to talk about, there wouldn't be an NDA that he had to sign so that he wouldn't talk about it.
Exactly.
You don't sign an NDA to talk about something that doesn't exist.
Right. Right. So it exists. You know? I mean,
so it's like, I mean, with how many times Lou said I can't, or I'd rather say that in a closed setting, or I'd rather do that in a different setting.
Right.
Like it was still giving an answer. You know what I'm saying?
It was,
because
he has to give an answer because they asked him a question.
Right. But I'm saying the way he answered it also answered
it. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So that's what I thought. But yeah, so we had Danny Sheehan's video. He brought up a lot of good points. New Paradigm Institute and MUFON are collaborating. I love collabs. I love when groups get together. And he brought up a lot of really good points about Trump and how we have to keep pushing Congress and how we have to hold Trump, you know, like to his what was the thing? Promises made, promises kept thing.
Yes.
That you know, he's talking about releasing the JFK files. He's talking about releasing the UFO files. So there's a lot of things going on with him and the people that he's picking for his party and all that too. We'll get into some of that later though.
To keep in trend with hearing thoughts from people that attended the event, we have this tweet from Lester Nare that says, "After taking some time, I've tried to gather my thoughts about the UAP hearing as concisely as possible, and it starts with the idea that information is 9/10 of the law." That tweet happens to be a thread where he spells out his thoughts in a super organized fashion. So if you want to check it out, the link can be found in the video description box below.
Alrighty, and next we will hear from Ross Coulthart, who, like Justin said earlier, is reporting to us from Egypt.
G'day and welcome to a special edition of Reality Check, coming to you live from Cairo, Egypt. I didn't attend today's hearing in the Congress for the House Oversight and Accountability Committee because I had a prior engagement to be a host of a tour of Egypt's ancient ruins. And it's a very fascinating trip, I have to say. I'm really enjoying the experience. And there is a definitive connection to the UAP mystery, because just like the UAP mystery, the issue of the ancient technologies, the mystery of the ancient technologies of the ancient ruins of Egypt are in plain sight, and they pose a conundrum, an inexplicable conundrum. Who the hell built them? And just like the UFO issue, there's a hell of a lot of evidence that everybody's been ignoring and sticking their head in the sands on. Coming to today's hearing, well, I wouldn't say it was groundbreaking. I wouldn't say it was momentous. But boy, there was something special about, I think, a shift in the room. I think there was a sense of change in the determination and the attitude of the Congress. It's quite clear that a number of congressmen, congresswomen are determined to get to the bottom of this UAP issue. And let's put today's hearing in context before we get into the nitty-gritty detail of the hearing. Let's put in context that President-elect Trump has announced John Ratcliffe, the former director of national intelligence, as his new head of the CIA. And Ratcliffe has been extremely outspoken on the subject of UAPs. He's indicated very strongly that he thinks that there needs to be greater transparency and accountability. And just in the last few minutes, I've heard that Tulsi Gabbard from Colorado, the representative from Colorado, has been chosen by President Trump to be the director of national intelligence. That's quite a momentous turn of events. I can imagine there are people in the Defense Department and the CIA Office of Global Access in particular, who are quaking in their boots, turning on the shredders, getting ready for the imminent possibility of demands by the Congress for information. I mean, I think the simple fact is that we're in a position where the maintaining of the status quo by those who keep on wishing to keep this secret is no longer sustainable. I get the impression that not only are congressional representatives getting frustrated and impatient, they are actually at the point now where they're determined to get access to information. What did I think of the speakers today? Look, I didn't hear anything new. I do think that, frankly, the issue will always be with the House Oversight and Accountability Committee public hearings, that nothing can be discussed that hasn't been pre-approved in a DOPSA, in a Defence Office pre-publication security review. And in this case, you know, a lot of people are saying online they're very frustrated that there's been no more revelations from Lou Elizondo in particular. But the guy is constrained by his DOPSA. He's not allowed to reveal anything that he's not authorized to reveal. Otherwise, that puts him in breach of his security oath.
All very good points, Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I always like listening to him.
Yeah,
there's just something about him.
He could probably just read the phone book and it would still sound good. You know
right?
What I'm saying? Oh man, I just realized not everybody knows what a phone book is. I probably just dated myself. Fuck. Yeah. That's okay.
That's all right.
All right. Anyway, so also reporting to us from Egypt to share their thoughts on the hearings is UAP Society's Captain Chris Lato himself, who just so happens to be at that same exact event that Ross Coulthart is hosting. So right now, Ross and Chris are buddying it up, getting to look at some Egypt ruins and some ancient stargates and all kind of cool things. All right. A post from Chris Lato on YouTube says, "Update from Luxor, Egypt. I watched the hearing with fellow enthusiasts in the hotel dining room. Ross Coulthart was nearby. The consensus from the UAP crowd was disappointing, but my family back in Portugal were quite impressed. I think the hearing will definitely push the needle for the basic person not steeped in UAPs. Although I, along with many others, was hoping for direct accounts from whistleblowers, I was impressed and encouraged by the professionalism and courage of the Admiral and Lou Elizondo. They, along with the Congresspeople, were direct and clear. They know something is going on, but where should they look? Schellenberger was also direct, and his stories about the F-22s were quite interesting. Immaculate Constellation is now in the public record, so there is no excuse not to investigate it. Gold's inclusion as a NASA rep will help push UAP awareness in the U.S. and overseas. We immediately saw more headlines overseas about UAPs.
Wow, okay.
I've also had fantastic discussions with Ross Coulthart. I can report that he is the real deal, and there are real, tangible releases coming in the next few months. I told you Ross was sitting on some secrets.
Right.
The appointments of John Ratcliffe and Matt Gaetz seem very positive for disclosure as well. It appears the next administration is set up to be the administration of disclosure. We will see. My biggest takeaway from a fantastic trip through Egypt is that ancient Egyptians were tuned into the cosmos and knew about space, other worlds, and galaxies. The structures were definitely purpose-built, and their society knew about the cycles of existence. Could the Earth be a consistent generator of civilization? What was the function of the pyramids and other ancient sites? We are off to Abydos today. I probably said that wrong. Forgive me. Abydos today. The group is fatigued but motivated. Check my Patreon for detailed photos and updates. So it sounds like these hearings have already made waves around the world, because if his family in Portugal is excited about it and the news uptake over there, yeah. So see, look, guys,
it's making waves.
Something you might think. Not as bad. Not as bad.
And to close out this after segment, let's take a look at some clips from NBC News and News Nation, and hear from Nancy Mace and Glenn Grothman themselves about how they felt the hearings went.
And joining me now is the chairwoman who made today happen, South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Congresswoman, thank you for being with us. Those of us who've been following this very closely have been hearing whispers of the words Immaculate Constellation for a few months now. You went out and put it straight on the record. Why did you think that was important?
Well, it's important that if the Pentagon or other federal agency is hiding these programs that they deny from the American public, and yet we learn recently that it actually does exist, the American people ought to know the truth and the facts. There's so much that we have overclassified. You can't talk about the date of some of the alleged UAP imagery, for example. Some of the witnesses couldn't even describe what they've seen because of the way things have been overclassified. You can't talk about the budget for some of these programs because that's classified. We overclassify everything into what end? Does it really make America safer? I don't think so. And the American people deserve to know the truth.
It must have been very frustrating for you sitting up there and not being able to get a lot of those straight answers. Was for people that were watching it too. And then you posted this very mysterious report for the public to see with alleged details about Immaculate Constellation. What is in here is wild. I mean, and I'm paraphrasing, but reports of F-22s getting boxed in by flying orbs that they couldn't shake. There were satellite images or satellite image of a football field-sized flying saucer hiding in clouds seen from this satellite looking down. Have you seen any of this footage or these images?
I have not seen those images or footage, but of course we're going to want to go digging for it in a skiff right after this. But the question I asked Michael Schellenberger, the journalist who was there testifying today, was when he wrote this report about the Immaculate Constellation, was, did he have more than one source, and the type of sourcing he used? He had multiple sources. They had clearances. They were very credible individuals, and that's really important detail when you're bringing forth this kind of information.
Absolutely. And Congresswoman, the testimony we heard today, I mean, it was suggesting that around the time that Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon helped get those black and white videos out in 2017, that's when this shadow program was spun up to kind of vacuum up all the data in a way that the public would not know. The allegation, if I understand it correctly, was that it was done out of the executive branch, which would have been President Trump at the time. The president right now, he seems to, or the president-elect seems to be appointing some pretty heavy hitters that have been demanding UAP transparency to his cabinet, like Rubio, Ratcliffe. What do you think we're going to see next year when Trump takes office on this?
I hope that we'll have the most transparent and accountable administration in U.S. history, not just for UAPs, but across the board with every single federal agency, because the American people overwhelmingly voted for the truth and voted for transformational changes within the federal government. And that should be one of them. Transparency should be a part of that. We had great witnesses today, including the Admiral Gallaudet, who said that, emails were deleted when they started talking about the UAPs that were witnessed on a ship when they were out and deployed at sea. So we learned a lot of information. We learned information that the government denies. They say there is no there. These things don't exist. But yet we learned today that there are federal employees and individuals injured by crashed craft retrieval programs and being paid by the government and compensated. So you can't tell me it doesn't exist, and yet you have people who've been harmed by retrieving craft, and are being paid by the government for those injuries. So it doesn't add up, and we have a lot more to investigate. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
A key member of Congress, Representative Glenn Grothman of Wisconsin, was at that hearing. I asked him about some of the most shocking revelations. Take a listen.
Well, I think the most shocking revelation is that people keep saying that there are things going on out there, but for whatever reason, our government cannot tell us about them. Okay, disproportionately, these sightings are happening near military bases. Now, wouldn't that indicate to you that either there are American technology in its own right or foreign actors? The speed at which these flights are going, particularly over the air bases near Florida, is just shocking. Way quicker than any airline, quicker than any human being could really live through. So we're going to have another hearing in the future, and I think we're going to have to pass legislation.
I know the Pentagon released its 2024 UAP report just yesterday by the Department of Defense. There are 21 sightings that remain unsolved and are undergoing more analysis by the Pentagon. 21 instances. How concerning is that to you?
Well, I think it's concerning because, like I said, they're hiding things that are old. If something happened 3 months ago, fine. It could be something secret we want to keep secret. So the sightings that are recent, well, I'd like to know more about them.
So Congressman Grothman's answer that we just saw, I feel like his answer got cut short there. He was trying to make the distinction between UAPs that are recent, like within this last couple of years. Yeah, those should remain classified. But UAPs or UAP data that's over 15 years.
Yeah, he did go into that.
Should be released.
Yeah.
There shouldn't really be a national security concern to get some of that information out. And that's what he was trying to say at the end there.
Okay. All right, so there you have it. The people that led the meeting themselves talking about how they thought the hearing went. And, they also introduced, well, not they, but the news broadcaster introduced and mentioned the whole AARO report that just came out a couple days ago, I believe, on the 14th, if I remember correctly. So that's something new that she mentioned, and we'll discuss that a little bit later on in the show. And we also wanted to mention that the 12-page document that Nancy Mace entered into record, we have the link to that in the video description box below in case you want to check that out. And we also have the Jesse Michaels tweet with the missing 12th page from Jeremy Corbell. So we have the full shebang. The first link is going to give you pages 1 through 11, and then the Jesse Michaels tweet will give you that 12th missing page. Full package. Yeah, so there.
A tweet from Jesse Michaels says, "Here is the missing 12th page of the Immaculate Constellation docs provided to Congress yesterday. It was a cover letter by the great Jeremy Corbell, who played a foundational role in the pretext for the hearing and should also get credit."
Go UFO!
So what were your thoughts on how the hearing went? With testimony from Lou Elizondo and Dr. Tim Gallaudet, do you think this hearing marks a genuine shift in transparency? Or are we still chasing shadows? Will you continue to push Congress to hold more UAP hearings? Do you think Trump will release the JFK and UFO files? Let us know in the comment section below. Up next, AARO in the Spotlight, Senate hearings to reveal UFO investigation insights. Prepare for a groundbreaking deep dive into one of the most fascinating topics of our time. On November 19th, 2024, at 4:30 p.m., the Senate Armed Services Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities, chaired by the ever-determined Senator Christian Gillibrand, will convene to discuss the latest activities of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. This highly anticipated hearing will start with a closed-door session to tackle sensitive, classified material. But the real excitement begins during the public session, where we'll get an unprecedented look at some of AARO's most compelling investigations, like the infamous Gimbal and Tic Tac UFO videos. These cases have sparked intense public interest and raised serious questions about national security and aerospace safety. With a mission to bridge the gap between classified findings and public understanding, Senator Gillibrand is set to lead a discussion that could reshape the way we view UAP phenomena and how the government responds to these mysteries. This is transparency in action, and you don't want to miss it.
A tweet from D. Dean Johnson says, Congress UFO UAP update. Senate Armed Services Committee posts notice of closed hearing, followed by open hearing, November 19th, 2024, to examine the activities of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office and Emerging Threats and Capabilities Subcommittee. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Chair. Something interesting a fellow UAP Society mod said that I wanted to share with you guys is this. Wonder if anyone will bring up the fact that the DNI refused to sign off on Kirkpatrick's AARO report, aka Project Blue Book 2024.
Right.
I don't think they will, but they should, and it would be totally awesome if they did.
Well, I mean, the fact that they refuse to sign off on it
speaks volumes.
It does. You know,
Yep.
It basically means that, you know, they don't think it's...
They're not trying to claim him, is basically what I get out of that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You know, I still remain hopeful in the new director, Kozlowski.
Okay.
But I have heard rumblings that they're going to reveal what some UAP are. Apparently, there's a video that's out there that everybody knows. You know, it's a pretty famous UAP video that they've been able to identify what it was. So they're going to put that out there. Okay. You know, I still want to see the video of the object making a 90-degree turn doing Mach 15. You know, that's been said that video exists. I want to see that video. Sure, I want to know what that is.
We all want to see that.
I'm not interested in all the things that they're able to resolve and figure out what it is. You know, and I'm interested in the 1% of the reports that they have not been able to identify.
Well, since you mentioned that, on November 14th, the U.S. Department of Defense released its fiscal year 2024 consolidated annual report on unidentified anomalous phenomena. And I wanted to give you guys like a summary of what that AARO report stated. So basically the key findings were that there's no evidence of extraterrestrial origin. So AARO has found no indication of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology in any reports.
But of course they won't if they don't have the appropriate clearances to get access to this information.
Okay.
Which that's been said, that they don't have the clearances that they need.
Yeah, we determined that already, right?
Yeah.
All right. The next key finding is regarding health effects, that they found no adverse health effects reported by observers in any of the incidences.
Okay.
Havana syndrome was brought up during the hearings. Just want to point that out.
Yep.
Another key finding was about safety concerns. 2 reports from military air crews flagged flight safety concerns. 3 reports described pilots being trailed or shadowed by UAP. And no confirmation of foreign adversarial involvement, though investigations continue in coordination with the intelligence community. The conclusion basically is summed up by stating the report emphasizes ongoing efforts to resolve UAP cases while reiterating that no evidence of extraterrestrial activity has been found. AARO claims to address safety concerns, improve data quality, and enhance global collaboration, to find better understandings of UAP phenomena.
Yeah, it's more the same.
I know. It's basically like, nothing to see here, folks. We didn't find anything. But just like that news reporter brought up when she was talking to Glenn Grothman, there was 21 incidences that they could not explain away, and that's that 1% that you're talking about, and that's what we all want to know. You know, if things can be explained with prosaic explanations, fine, cool,
right,
okay, check that box, put it on the shelf, done. But what we want to know is that, like, 1%, those 21 cases that you cannot explain away. It's not a weather balloon. It's not swamp gas. It's not a dino beaver. It's not a McWest balloon.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a, you know, it's
I want to know if they looked into that report of those 3 or 4 orbs that were swarming around that F-22.
Okay.
I want to know if they looked into that. I want to know if they looked into that report when Donald Trump revealed that he had an Air Force pilot in the Oval Office telling him that there was an orb going 4 times faster than his F-22. I want to know if they looked into that.
Have you guys noticed that there's like reoccurring themes that are like being talked about throughout this whole show? It's like Trump keeps coming up. I think it's so funny because like everybody that we featured like mentioned him in some way, shape, or form. I just find that strange. But yeah, so if you guys would like to watch the hearing yourself and be where all the other cool kids are going to be, join us over on Vetted, where Patrick's going to be live streaming that on his channel. A link to his page, along with all of the other sources featured in this show, can be found in the video description box below, so make sure to check that out. Everything is in the order that it appears. We put a lot of good work into there, so make sure to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And that concludes this week's UAP Society's weekly UAP and UFO news show. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And while you're here, please do us a favor and smash that like button, click subscribe, ring our little notification bell, drop a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word.
All right.
Let's raise the collective consciousness together in unity.
All right. Much
love,
love,
peace, and namaste.